What's up, YouTube fam? Right, we're back for part 8. I just got my hub back from the machinist today. Slight fuck up there, but we'll get to that. This week's exciting episode will cover the front wheel spacers, back brake, a bit of paint stencils, and an oil cooler, making up the brackets of the cooler and whatnot. If anybody's never done it before, then it might be useful to them, who knows. I've also started sanding the frame down, and I've finished the welding on the frame. As far as I know, I'm going to have a quick check over it, make sure. In fact, I'm not finished welding in the frame. I've still got a couple of tabs for a exhaust and a rear brake master cylinder. The little flipping pot thing, whatever it's called. My brain's not working today. I've been losing sleep. Anyway, that's this week's episode. Thanks for keeping up with us and following along. And subscribe up and tell all your friends. So, let's go. We're back on the front end today. My plan is to take this Bandit wheel out of the Bandit forks and get the Triumph one in, which is sitting over there. I'll also be replacing the fork legs. I mean, these are okay, but if you look closely, there's a couple of little marks on them. I'll see if they'll clean out, but I'm not sure if it's... I think it's actually marked the alloy, whatever it is, scratched it or something. Probably a stone off the road or whatever. But the coatings on these isn't the best. The other ones were really corroded, the ones that I painted. So we'll have a look. I might keep them, we'll see. See how lazy I am. So to get these forks off, you get 2 pinch bolts here. Undo them, then you get your spindle here. That just undoes because it's threaded into this side of your fork leg. Your speedo drive will come out, and then your wheel will come out. So I'm obviously going to have to measure up for spacers. That's what I'm doing today. That's why I'm swapping the wheels out. I'll put the spindle in, check the distances and whatnot from the calipers, which is another thing I'll have to take off. Brake calipers need to come off, and we'll see where we are for sizes. So the front wheel's off. See, when you take things like calipers off, put the bolts back into them, even though you're only going to be like an hour or whatever. Because if you don't, it'll just save you going mad, swearing at inanimate objects when you can't find them later on. And you take stuff like spindles out, put the spacers on them, put the nuts on the end if there's a nut on the end of them. Just saves you, like I say, looking for stuff later on. I'll undo this bolt here and take the speedo cable off with the guide because I won't be using it. Looking again at these forks, I'm not sure if it'll pick it up, but there's like bits of corrosion starting underneath the alloy. So yeah, I'm going to change these out for definite. That's maybe the worst mark there. The odd stone chip, but they're pretty good condition considering the age of them. They are more than flipping 25 years old. So we'll not complain too much. In fact, we'll not complain at all. So wheels out. I'm keeping the Nissan brakes because they're excellent bits of kit, in my opinion. And they're much better than any of the 6-pots and any of that garbage that are a nightmare to bleed. So I'll keep a hold of them and I'll transfer them onto the forks once I get them changed out. So then I'm going to put this wheel in, the Triumph one. I'll stick it in. That's the forks I'm replacing these with. But I'll stick this wheel into the old forks to get it lined up and everything else, and then I'll just change up and out once I come around and do the final build. Okay, so hang tight. Right, so we've got some measurements here. Very important things to do, measurements. I've measured through the hub. The Bandit 12 is 102mm. The 675 is 105mm. I've measured the spacers for the Bandit. That's the right hand side one, that's 10mm. And I've also measured the speedo drive, which is 34mm. So we get 10mm on this side, 34mm on this side. Now you've also got your shoulder for your spindle, which is sitting somewhere here. So I'll need to measure how far through this comes to see if this wheel is central. I'd imagine it will be central, the hub, but you know, if this is 24, if this sticks through 24, then that would make 34, 34, which means the hub is central, and 9 times out of 10 they are. So what I need to do now is figure out the spacers that I need for this side, also bearing in mind that it's 3mm wider, the hub's 3mm wider than the Bandit 12, so I could take like 1.5mm off of either side spacers that I come to, if that makes sense. But just now I'm going to measure the distance between the fork leg and where this stops once it's all tightened up, okay? And that'll give me an idea of this complete size, yeah? So we'll do that. So we'll get the 675 wheel in now, but it's just loosely in. Obviously I've tightened the spindle through so that I can get an accurate measurement. And now I'm going to measure the distance between the end of the fork leg and the central piece of the hub, this lip here. And on this side here, I will measure the same. From there, you can see there we've got 25. Well, it is actually 25 if you centre it. Another side, it's the same, which means that the hub on this is central, it's not offset in the middle anywhere for my spacers. I thought it would be, but you're always best to check, because there is the odd one like that isn't, like the speedo driven front wheels will be off because they have to make an allowance for the speedo being the width of the speedo drive, stuff like that, so it's always worth checking. So now we can work out our spacer sizes. Just to say as well, when we're working out our spacer sizes, we could have done it through there with the wheel tightened up in the forks, etc. But you've got rubber seals on these hubs for the bearings on the outside, so you're not going to get an entirely accurate measurement. I mean, it might be close enough for most, but I'd rather work it out from the sizes that I have and figure it out from there. At least that way you know that it's going to be exactly what it should be. Right, so finally we've figured it out. What I've done is I've measured the entire width between the fork legs, which is 166. Divided it in half, you get 84 on each side. Put a centre line through your hub because your hub's central. And that leaves this half being 52.5, this half being 52.5, which is obviously half of 105. So then you just have to do a bit of subtraction, and what you'll do is you'll add your 52.5 from here, plus your 20 that you already have from your spindle, which gives you 72.5. You take the 72.5 away from the 84, which gives you 11.5 millimeters. So that's the size of spacer you need on that side. You do the same again on this side, but you've only got 52.5. You don't have a existing here because obviously the wheel's central, not like the Bandit one. So you take the 52.5 away from 84, and that gives you a size of 31.5 millimeters. Now, because these are turned out at 0.5 of a mil, and I've measured the hub over and over again because I thought 105 is an odd size to make a bloody hub. So what I'll probably end up doing is rounding that up to 32, rounding that up to 12. It'll only be 1 millimeter difference. And the only difference it'll mean will be, if anything, that the spindle where it comes through the fork legs will be 1 mil less, which is that amount, which is bugger all. And it'll be a lot easier to get spindles made to that. So I'm going for a 20mm ID spacer, and I will measure the hub to see what size of outside diameter it'll be, but it'll be, the spindle's 20mm obviously, so the inside diameter will be 20. The outside diameter might be 40, but I'll see if I get room for 40. And in fact, I could measure this, couldn't I? See what that works out at. Oh, it's more than 40. So keep it the same as that. What's that? 45. So we'll go with 45 OD on the spacers. So this one will be 12 by 45. And this one will be 32 by 45. I'll just keep them both the same. Obviously I'll check the hub, because the hub's like comes in, you know, so I'll check that I've got enough room. You've got your bearing through here, so I'll make sure I've got enough room in here to put a 45 wide spacer. And if I don't, I'll just make it a top hat spacer, which is obviously something like this, so that this part goes inside, this part stays on the outside. So that's the front wheel spacer sorted. Another job off the list. I've still got the back wheel ones to do, but obviously I can't do them until the useless bastards at the machine shop get my hub machined. So I'm just having a look at this again. I think I'm going to order an oil seal for here, so that both the spacers are just off of that central shaft, if you like. I mean, it's a sealed bearing, it probably doesn't need it, but it looks like there's been something in there before, and I'm pretty sure the spacer wouldn't come right to the edge in these, would it? So yeah, I'm going to order an oil seal just to keep this from getting a load of crap in it. And the other side has one, as you can see, so it won't do any harm, will it? And then obviously my spacers will just be from the centre, whatever diameter that is in there. Let's have a measure and see, shall we? That's about 32, 31, 32. So it's a 32 outside diameter, my spacer I need. 32 OD. And the inside is obviously 20 for the shaft. It's 20 mil, so I just need to figure out what the standoff here is from it for my, if I make it a top hat. I don't think I'll bother making it a top hat, I'll just make it a straight spacer, there's no point. Doesn't do anything, you know. So for this oil seal, I've measured it. The width of this is 42. The bore is 20 obviously, and the offset is 8 mil. So I'll get an oil seal for in there. Right, while I'm waiting for my hub to be machined, I decided to attack this brake caliper. It's a rear caliper, it's seized solid, honest to Christ. I've never come across anything as bad as this in my life. But anyway, I'll clean it up. I've just managed to get the piston out. I tried compressed air, wouldn't budge it, which is most unusual. And pretty much everything comes out with compressed air, you know. But this one didn't. So I got Mr. Heat onto the case, heated all around the outside of where the piston is. Okay, and then stuck my good old reliable Halford's mole grips onto the tiniest bit of edge that I had on the piston that was sticking out. You can probably see the lip, that's about as much as that was sticking out. So I got my pliers on the end of it like this, and then just hammered the end of the pliers. Let me show you. Hammered on the end of the pliers here and just keep battering it. But you need to get a lot of heat into this alloy. This is about 3 or 4 minutes later and it's still hot to touch, you can't hold on to it. So I should have put vice protectors in because I've marked it. It won't matter though because it's not beside the seal. But if you're doing it, put some vice protectors in, jaw protectors, whatever they're called. I have got a set somewhere, don't know where. I think I melted them actually when I was using heat last time. They had a rubber inside in them, so I need to buy another set. But yeah, that piston is now scrap. You know, it's absolutely hammered. More corroded than a very corroded thing. So just a bit of tip, if you're struggling to get these things out and air won't do it, you can either use a grease gun in the bleed nipple, slacken the bleed nipple and get the grease gun in and pump it out that way. If that doesn't work, then this is your last option really. Loads of heat, and like I say, use the old moleys. Another way to do it is to get two sockets. If you get sockets that'll fit inside the piston here, in the middle of the piston, if you get two sockets with knurled edges, you can turn it out by putting it, slackening it. Like they have to be a tight fit in here, and as you slacken it, the extra force will turn the piston out the caliper. So that's another useful one to know. That's a knife. I was making completely nothing to do with bikes, but I started about flipping 7 or 8 years ago, and I built a belt grinder, but I need a motor for it, and they're about 300 quid, so that's on hold while the bike gets built. Anyway, I'm digressing now. I'll leave you at that. As you can see, the corrosion in there is next level. It's Titanic, we would say. This is the other half of the caliper. As you can see, it's just as bad. Lots of corrosion in the back there. If you look at the bolts that are holding the caliper halves together, see the levels of corrosion on there? This has obviously been sitting for a long, long time without having seen any maintenance whatsoever. But what I'll do is I'll get these seals out. Same in this one. Then I'll check the bore, see if it's still going to be usable, or if it's that badly corroded around the tops and whatnot that the piston won't slide in it. But I mean, these pistons, they're toast anyway, both of them. Need a pair of pistons and I need a rebuild kit. But it'll probably still be cheaper than buying a second-hand caliper. And if you buy a second-hand caliper, chances are it's going to need rebuilt anyway, because most of them have been flipping left neglected for years. Hardly MD strips down their brakes anymore and cleans them. And this is certainly one of those examples. So I'll get rid of the pistons, bin them, but I'll keep them for measuring up for the replacements. Then seals out, clean up the bores and see what like. Take it from there. I mean, look at all the salt on there. It's bloody solid. You know, you can put that in your chips if you were so inclined to. And the seal, obviously the seal was knackered as well. So that's it. New seal kit, new pistons, new bolts, new bleed nipples, because these ones have been in the North Sea. These are Tokiko, or whatever you call them, calipers. They're crap compared to Nissans, in my opinion. You know, they're just. What happens is when they make them, Nissan anodise these bores before they fit the pistons, and Tokiko don't. So the pistons just end up sticking in the bores. You know, it's a really shit design. But they're not worried because it'll last for the few years of the bike warranty. You know. So if you can get a Nissan rear caliper, get one rather than a Tokiko, because like I say, the Nissans are much better. That's just some of the corrosion that's come out. I mean, look at the seals. Absolutely crusted with it. They're obviously getting no use for anything but the bin. But you can see the amount of crap and corrosion that's in them. I've given these a swift clean, but I've not cleaned the insides yet. What I generally use for that is an old toothbrush and some brake fluid. You don't want to use sandpaper or anything like that in here, because what you'll do is you'll wreck the bore, and then the piston will leak because it won't seal, and you'll need a new caliper. So don't put sandpaper or Scotch-Brite or anything anywhere near it. The Scotch-Brite you can use on this top lip and the outside if you want, but I personally not going to bother. Another thing you can use Scotch-Brite for is for sanding down the outside a bit before you paint it. So I will obviously paint these. I'm not leaving them like that because they look absolutely bloody horrendous. But first off, we'll clean them, and then we'll give them a coat of epoxy, coat of base coat, and a final coat of clear coat. I'm not going to do the fronts because they're fine, they look okay, they're like new. So that's that. This is the good half of the caliper, I guess you would say. After I've given it a quick squirt with the brake cleaner, you can see inside there is a little bit of corrosion on the actual bore, but not massive. See it beside the hole, just sit below that hole there. This phone's not the best camera, that's probably a better kind of shot of it. But like I say, that's not big enough to make a huge difference. Your seals will catch anything. It's got some corrosion past this on the right hand side of the seal groove as well, but again, that won't make any odds. This caliper is reusable. I know it looks pretty rough, but trust me, this will live again quite easily. So I'll do the bad one. That's as much brake fluid as I use. I'm just using some generic brake fluid here, and that's about as much as I use. Just put a bit in the bottom, obviously, and then grab your wife's toothbrush and scrub away. Alright, second one's cleaned up now, the one that was really bad. You can see there's some light corrosion in there, but in my opinion that is savable. I don't really want to be buying new brake calipers. They're about 40 odd quid minimum. Like I say, they're probably as bad as this if you opened them up. So new set of seals. Another tool to use is this pick. Use that pick and you can get it into the grooves where the seal is, like this. So if you get any corrosion built up in there, use your pick and go down and just like pick it off. Yeah, gently, don't go too mad in it. Don't put your pick near this part, between here and here, because that's the bore, the piston. The piston runs up and down in that. You want that to be as smooth as possible. I mean, like I said, this one does have some corrosion in it, but it's not a massive amount, you know. And I'm pretty sure that'll seal. It's not like, what happens is if you leave it long enough, it'll start eating into the alloy of the caliper, and that's when you're in real trouble. But this is more just like surface corrosion, I guess you would say. So I'll give that a good clean out and then fit all the new bits. Okay. Also, while you're doing this, there's a rubber seal that goes in here, and this is where the fluid comes from the other caliper. The other side of the caliper to this side of the caliper to push the pistons out. So if you get yourself, once you've cleaned them all out, get yourself some braking parts cleaner and squirt it down these holes just to make sure they're all clear. Same with your bleed nipple holes. That's one there at the top of that you can see there. So push some through there. Obviously take the bleed nipple out, you know. I shouldn't have to tell you that. And then that'll be them ready for painting and ready for going back together. Okay, I've just been doing a little more metal joining, only call it welding. And I cut the tubes off the back. When you're doing this, make sure that you're square on the tubes, and always double check it both sides. That's close enough for me. I've got a couple of plugs that are going to go in the end of the tubes here, and I'm going to use fiberglass filler to hide how shit my welding is. I've ground most of them down. A couple need a little tickle with the grinder. These mounts here are for, there's going to be a aluminium under tray, so I needed fixing points for it. So one there, one there, one there, and one right down the bottom there. And I also need fixing points for my electrics to come off, so I'll use that. What I didn't do was weld the holes at the top with the top one, but I can do that with a drill, it's not a problem. Like I say, I had drilled some holes in these just to make them look a bit less agricultural. I'll maybe trim them down, and I may use them for a mount for the tank, not the tank, sorry, the front of the seat retainer, keep it down. So that's progress up to date. my welder popped in yesterday, but I managed to fix it, thankfully. That's how much welding I've done in my entire life. Half a bottle of gas. I don't even know it's not. It's going to register. Yeah. Sorry, more than half a bottle of gas. Let's see what we've got. We've got about 50 litres left. So I used 150 of that, 200. That was doing my van as well, fanning about practising, but obviously didn't do me any good because I'm still shit at it. But never mind, we can but try. So I'm back into the painting again. I got sent up a sheet of stencils from a mate on old school Suzuki, but there's some issues with it. You can see there that it's not really happening there. So what I'm going to try to do today is cut a few of them out, see what like. He said himself he had issues with the cutter. It kept pulling bits, as you can see on the decals. This is probably the better sheet. Another sheet's quite a bit worse. But he tried, fair play to him, he tried. And he sent them up the road to me within about a week, so I'm not going to complain. I haven't paid him for it yet. He said, try and use them, and if they don't work, then you don't owe me anything. If they do work, then send me a bit of cash down the road. So that's what I'm going to do today, is I'm going to try and make it work. Some of these larger ones, they might possibly be pickable. I've actually done one already. So this is what I'm looking for. And this will be put onto transfer paper, so that when I put this onto the bike, the parts that I'll be getting sprayed are obviously going to be the lettering, the heart, the skull, the eyes. But it's proven to be a bit of a bloody nightmare getting them picked out, to be honest. But there's not much we can do about that, I'm afraid. Not a lot. I need to pick a bit more of that eye out. It's also quite hard to see what you're actually meant to be doing with these, but we'll get there. So I'm going to see if I can pick some of these out. If I can't, the decals aren't going on. If I can, they will. Also, if they can't go on, I might change the entire paint scheme for something completely different. So don't be too surprised if that happens. Well, it's got to be said, this is a fiddly bastard of a job, and some of them are looking alright, some of them are looking a bit ropey. See that one on the left there? It goes between the I and the T. I mean, probably never noticed, but I would like it to be right, you know. Maybe I'm too fucking fussy. However, I'll have a bash at picking out some more of these, and we'll see. We'll decide once I've spent another hour at it. Well, the postman's been and left me a parcel, so let's see what's inside it, shall we? Two down. I know what it is. Anyway, but I'll just... It's actually good to see that the Chinese know how to pack stuff, unlike most British flipping eBay sellers. It's a 19-row cooler, and it looks pretty good. I went for AN8 fittings, so they're smaller than the AN10s, and they fit between your exhaust pipes a bit better. But yeah, pretty cool. 55 quid or so from China, and it's been delivered in under a week, so you can't really complain about that, can you? Other than that, I'll be making up the lines and putting the bracket to fit it to the bike on. But other than that, today's been spent extremely mind-numbingly, boringly taking a sheet like this, which we can just about see has got decals on it, and then unpicking all the bits that you don't need to leave you with this. So this will go onto the underneath the candies. You'll notice that the D's in Bandit are a bit missing, and the O's and O and Skull even, there's a centre part missing. Well, what a shame, never mind. Right, the other boring job I've been doing today is the frame, and I'll show you that just now. More paint prep. This took me about 3 hours today to polydisc the paint off. As you can see, I've still got loads and loads of bits to do, but at the point, you get to the point you think, you know what, maybe I should just have scuffed it with a bloody pad. But I did have quite a bit of corrosion on it that I had to get rid of. Under the headstock here, you can still see there's still some bits of rust showing. You want to get rid of as much of that as you can. And up here there was like a few stones jammed in the gaps. Don't know if that's a common thing or not. The headstock hasn't been done obviously because I'm using the poly discs and the angle grinder. It's quite tricky to get into. I used up a few old discs to do most of the sides of the frame. You know, that central part there, it'll be covered. So will that hole there be covered? But the most awkward bits of all are these parts down the bottom. They're an absolute nightmare. What I'll probably end up doing is getting as much of it as I can with the poly discs, and then using 80 grit, and then up to 120 grit, and then I'll epoxy it with the same epoxy that I've used in that section of frame there. And after that, I'm contemplating putting a bed liner coating on it, just as something different. Not sure if I've mentioned or not, but I've put these on as well. Welded these on today. There's one down the bottom. I've got an aluminium under tray to go on. I've fitted up all my lights and my seat unit and all the rest of it, and it all fits great. Tank now all fits great. So I'm contemplating whether to put a bracket on for an exhaust can or whether just to mount it off the foot peg. Undecided. I don't think I'll get anything else to weld on here. I've got my battery box to build obviously. I'm hoping I might be able to mount it off these, between that and the bottom one. Could always put two bars up there. And I've also got some more of this bar, but it's just small bits, so I could either do that or like cut a couple of these like tabs, but not full width, you know, just tabs at the side. I'll need one for the rear brake master cylinder. I'll need to fix to something up there, and there's also the rest of the electrics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the wiring loom out, see where it fits on the frame, see where everything's going to go, and then I'll have to make up various brackets and the battery box and all the rest of it to suit the wiring basically. So I don't want to go chopping wires and have to extend them and all the rest of it. I took the rubbers out of here, the tank, and out of here for the tank, just because while I'm rubbing it down, you know. But I mean, there's other bits that I've missed here. Like I say, you get about 3 hours in and you think, you know, maybe I should just have fucking got it shot blasted. But I don't have a local shot blaster. If you do, go and speak to them nicely and mask up your top and bottom head race bearings and your spindle holes. You don't want that getting blasted full of media. Your spindle holes will be alright, to be fair, but you don't want it in the bearing cups, yeah, because your needle rollers run against them. So that's as much as I've done today. Like I say, battery box and the wiring loom next. But it's a soul destroying job, boring as, but it has to be done. So next up's the oil cooler. I've got myself some 50 by 50 3mm thick angle aluminium, which I will stick down there before I lose it. Got my oil cooler in there. Again, take loads of measurements because you'll need them. Measure at least twice to be sure. This is looking down upon the top of the cooler. You get your two M6s at the ends. The overall length is what did we say? God, I've forgotten already. I measured up the bracket to mark this angle, should I say. If I measure it again, I'll be able to tell you exactly what the width of the cooler is. Right, we've got 344 there. It's 340 wide, so put an extra couple of mil past on each side. That's obviously just when I cut it, you know. If I need to grind it back slightly, so be it, but it's better to have too much than too little. So I got a piece of alloy that was 810, so 380 and 350 and 350, 700. So I'll still have 100 mil left to play with. Use your verniers as well to measure the narrower distances, if you like. So what we have is the hole in the top, on the bottom, should I say, where the oil line attaches, is a 30 mil diameter, and centres of them are 248. Oh, there we go. Overall length 330. So mine's 334. The oil cooler height's 142. So I've just been out and measured the holes in the frame. They look like they're M5, but I'm going to drill M6 holes, obviously. The top two are 94 centre to centre, and I've got 20 mil between the centre of that hole and the top of the frame where it starts to bend into the headstock. The bottom brackets that this angle locates into, if you like, they're 190 centres, and they're also 190 from the top cooler mounting hole, I guess, to the bottom inside of the bracket. So obviously you've got a rubber that goes into these brackets. That rubber's like 5 mil. So you have to take all these sizes into consideration when you're marking it out and making it. This bottom part between the two brackets that hold the angle on, I'm going to cut the angle up so that it's letting more air flow through to the engine, because if you think of it, like if that's your angle, yeah, and your oil cooler's sitting on top of it here, you know, that's blocking a lot of airflow through to your engine. So what I'll do is I'll relief cut it along here, something like that, leaving plenty at the ends so that it can hook into these brackets. I'm doing this tomorrow, so it'll maybe make a bit more sense once I've actually started cutting steel and drilling holes in it and what have you. But my one bit of advice is to always measure, and then measure again. And that way you can't go wrong, hopefully, he says. Right, we're making the oil cooler brackets today. This is what you'll need. You'll need a set square, tape, steel rule, some masking tape, verniers, a file, and you'll need a grinder to cut the alloy down to size, obviously. So what I did was I took a load of measurements before I started. I'll show you them here. This is the top bracket. It's got two M6, and they are what are they? 94 centre to centre on the top. So that's them marked up there. I put the tape on the alloy because it's a lot easier to see the marks, and it's a lot easier to mark it with your centre punch as well. It's just something I do. You don't have to, obviously. I also centre line everything so that you don't have it sticking out at one side more than the other. And I measure off the centre line, and then I double check from point to point that it's the same. Okay, so what likes of that one that's 94, I've split it into two at 47. So measure from your centre line 47, then check from spot to spot, it should be 94. If it's not, you've done something wrong. So that's the top bracket, that's the part that attaches to the frame. This is the part that's the cooler hoses come through the bottom of, and these crosses here are where the AN8 outtakes of the cooler will go through. I'll use a large saw to cut them, probably a cone saw, and I haven't done the two side holes for the side mounts. Another tip when you're doing this, right, is to mark it on the bit that's not going to be seen. So the cooler's going to be covered in this, yeah. So if you do happen to make any scrapes or scratches on it, it'll be hidden by the cooler anyway, yeah. And you will make scrapes and scratches on it. It's aluminium, it's really soft metal. So that's it marked out. I'm going to drill some of the holes now. Got my centre punch here. Got a 7mm drill bit. which I'll use to start off these big holes. I'll use a 7mm to start these off, and then I'll use the cone cutter, and we'll get bigger and bigger until we get to the diameter that we need. That's the 2 top holes drilled, and I've just finished them off with this. It's like a countersink 12mm, just to tidy up the holes, you know. And it gives you that glowing feeling inside when you're driving along, knowing that your stuff's done properly. Both sides, obviously. That one needs a bit of tidy up. Maybe just the tape. I'll take the tape off and see what it looks like. So that's one bit done. Another quick tip is to put a bit of wood in behind the aluminium so that the jaws of the vise don't mark it. Doesn't matter on this side because it's not seen, but on this side it will be seen. So do that. So I've drilled the pilot for the large holes for the cooler outlets, yeah. And this is what I'm going to use. It's called a step drill. As you can see there, it's got sizes marked on the side. That's various diameters. So all you do is you start from 7, which I think I've got in, and then just drill down. And what I'll do is, when I measure the diameter of the outlet, I'll stick a bit of tape around the drill. Like I say it's 22mm. I'll stick a bit of tape around where my thumbnail is here, so that I don't go past it. And it's also easier to see it, because I mean, the drill's spinning, you're not going to read what it says on the side of it, are you? But these are really useful things to have for aluminium work, so if you need any, get some. So it turns out that the diameter hole I need is 30. These are like 28, I believe, and I've added a couple of mil on just to make sure it's not tight around the outlet. You need a little bit of space, you know. So I'm just going to make it 30, and my drill bit only goes up to 32, so I'll note stop when it gets to the second last notch, if you like. Okay, so let's go and drill that. I'm about halfway through this, but I've stopped just to let the drill bit cool down a little bit. Not that I'm hammering it down or anything, but aluminium's a heat sink, so whilst you're drilling this down, you need to stop every couple of notches just to check that you're still in the centre of your crosshairs, if you like, because they can wander, but usually they don't. Either that or clamp your vise grip here, your drill vise, onto the actual bed of the drill, and it won't move. Or failing that, buy a milling machine if you're loads of money, but I don't. So we'll carry on. I think we're about, well, where are we? That's how far we are. We're about halfway, so still got a fair bit to go. So we'll crack on with that, and I'll do the other side and we'll show you when they're both done. So some good news, it fits. You can see it's quite a tight fit, but it's still got a little bit of movement, you know, so it's not like tight up against this part of the cooler. So now we've just got to drill the end holes. They're 6, I believe. I'll put some tape on here before I drill it. In fact, I'll drill it from the underside, that's what I'll do. I've yet to mark it, so we'll mark them out and then we'll drill them too, and do the same in the bottom bracket. And that's your oil cooler bracket almost done. All you have to do then is, this will obviously sit in the bike like this, so all you need to do is where my thumb is, my finger, you need to cut out a relief for some air to get past. I'm not going full height, I'll maybe just go 3/4 of the way up, and I'll probably end up cutting out something like that. But obviously I'll have to check where where it mounts in the frame. There's like 2 little tabs that this slides into, so I'll have to check them first for the height, and also for the height from the top bracket. The 2 mounting holes in the frame at the top, you'll obviously have to mount them with the cooler in it, and then at the bottom you'll be able to tell how much you need to take out, or you can just measure it basically from the top mounting holes to the bottom brackets that hold this in, and cut it to length there. So that's that done. I hope I'm not boring you too much, but it might be useful for somebody who's wanting to do the same thing. If they've got an aftermarket cooler and they want it fitted and they don't know how to do it. I mean, it's not rocket science, but I mean, you never know. Some people might never have done it before or not know where to start, so hopefully it helps someone. Another important bit about oil coolers is they need to be rubber mounted for the vibrations, or they'll crack and then you'll be left with oil everywhere. You don't want that. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a strip of rubber here. Don't know how thick it is. It's maybe 3mm thick rubber. That should be plenty. And I'll cut a bit for behind the mounting bracket, just a little square, something along the size of that, and that'll isolate the vibrations from the frame and the engine, get into the cooler. The other way you can do it is you can template this, cut a bit of rubber out and drill through the holes on your aluminium, you know what I mean, just transfer, drill these holes through the rubber. But I'm not going to do that this time. I've done that before, it's worked fine, but this time I'm just going to go for the bit with the bracket because it's easier and I'm a lazy bastard. You'll see some folk putting a bar between these mounts. I'm not, because I'm trying to save the unsprung weight, you see, because I'm a fat bastard. I relented in the end and I put a bit of rubber just in the top mount between the bracket and there. So I'll have one between here and the oil cooler, one between here and the frame, this one here, and that'll keep all the vibes at bay. The bottom one should be fine, I'm sure, because it'll be taken up by the top if there's any vibrations down there. So what I've got to do now is put this up towards the frame and we'll measure and see what we're looking to take off. These are the hooks at the bottom I was telling you about that they mount into. I've only got one rubber, obviously. I would have both of them, that'd be far too fucking easy. Right, so holes at the top line up, more or less. So I just need to measure from the top to the level between these two, and what I'll do is I'll put a steel rule across here and just hook it into the hooks, and then measure from the top of the steel rule to the mounting holes, and then I'll take off 5mm for the thickness of this rubber. That I better put back before I lose it, because I've already lost one. So that's the next in the agenda, okay? And then after that, I'll get back onto the frame, sanding it all down for painting. Oh, the joys. I've come up with a plan. Always own your fuck ups. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this top bracket down to that line, and that'll leave 25mm from the bottom of the bracket. I'll stick my holes at this point here, there and there, and that'll mean the bottom bracket will come to here, which will give it a bit more support. I can't really go any higher than this, because then you'll see the top flipping bolt holes, and I don't really want that, to be honest. So I'm going to cut along here, and then I will cut along here. But before I do that, I'll transfer these holes down, use the set square, and just cross the points of this line, and that'll be my centre punch marks. But yeah, we all make mistakes, but as long as you've got a solution to your problems, you're halfway there. So it's just another fuck up in a long litany that I've done in my life, so hey ho. So that's the cooler done. Just put in a test fit, just make sure everything lines up, all the holes line up and all the rest of it. So that's another job done. I might get trimmed down the top of these back to here or something, just to tidy it up a little bit, you know, make it look a bit smarter. The bottom, I'm not going to trim out the middle bit, because it's high enough as it is, you know. It's not exactly I was expecting this to be like 50mm deep, it's only about 25, so I won't bother with that now. But it's another job off the list, Good news and bad news. Good news is I get the hub back from the machinists, finally. He's taken 3.5mm off the outside of this, which I asked him to. Unfortunately, the spacer that I wanted 3mm off is not this spacer. This is the one that goes between the the sprocket carrier. It goes on the underside here. Fits in there. And obviously at the back of here. So, what Mr. Machinist had decided, that the one that I gave him, that wasn't the one that I needed done. No. He decided it was this one here. So I'll be back and I'll point out the error of his waves, but I did actually notice when I got it back, and I said to him, I says, what the fuck have you done that for? He says, you told me to take 3mm off the spacer. And I just shook my head. I mean, it was my own fault. I left that in there, you know. And he must have thought that was the spacer I meant. Even though I gave him the other spacer, the one off the spindle that I actually wanted machined. So he just gave me that back unmachined. So I'm going in tomorrow to see him again, and he said, if I take it back, well, he said if I have to go and pick up the carbs that he's machined the air screws out for, and he said if I take it in tomorrow, he'll machine 3mm off the right spacer. But in the meantime, I'm 20 quid down for a new fucking spacer, and he's 165 quid up for machining out a couple of air screws and fucking up my hub. Well, he's not really fucked it up. He's done what I asked him to do partially. It was just a breakdown in communications, I guess. But the fact that he had it for 3 weeks odd didn't really make me feel much joy about it or much forgiveness about it, you know. But I'm sure he won't pay for the replacement because he'll just say that I never explained clearly enough which one it was. So tomorrow I'll go in, I'll get the spacer machined, and then in the next enthralling episode we'll go onto the back wheel, and I'll get the spacers measured for the back wheel. I've got the spacers measured for the front wheel, not sure if it's in this video or the last one, and we'll get cracking and get the wheels on. We'll hopefully have this thing rolling before too long. I'm undecided whether I'm going to do a dry build on it or just paint the frame, you know, rather than put everything on then take everything off to paint the bloody frame. I might just paint the frame, take the risk that there's nothing missing, and do it that way, you know. So that's my thoughts anyway. I think I need a new pair of shoes. These ones are pretty fucked. They've got more holes in them than my sieve.